Are you ready, true believers? Capcom and Marvel have joined forces once again to bring you Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter! What spectacular action! Don't miss out on the enjoyment of a lifetime! Behold, amazing strategy! Don't miss the most amazing tag team fighting game ever! Are you ready for a new challenger? Victory! Come on! Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter! Choose your alter ego!
Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. Wow, what a mouthful. It was originally released in arcades in 1997, with the Saturn port hitting Japan only in 1998, and finally a worldwide PlayStation release in 1999. Before jumping into too many details, let's just start by saying that the PlayStation port is much like X-Men vs. Street Fighter, except I will admit it's a little bit better. This time around, the frames of animation were left more intact, and the overall look is greatly improved compared to the first game. That said, it doesn't feature the robust tag team system that was found in the arcade version and also the Saturn port. So the very first thing you'll likely notice with this one is that there's some weird Japanese character in the game. What the hell is that all about? Well, to make a long story short, his name is Norimaru, and he's a character who was created by a famous Japanese comedian at the time, and he's only featured in the Japanese version of the game. He was in the arcade version too, I might add. He has some pretty hilarious moves, as you'll tell in the video there, but don't, you know, like, how can I say this? He wasn't in the North American version, so if you played the original arcade here, yeah, you'll probably wonder, like, who the heck is this guy? But he was in the Japanese original, so just thought I should mention that. And he's actually a really fun character to use, as you can see. Okay, since we're already talking about characters, I might as well mention that virtually all of the X-Men have been replaced, with the exception of, like, Wolverine and Cyclops, and I think maybe Omega Red, I'm not sure. But anyways, with other characters, they've been replaced with other characters from the Marvel Universe, such as Spider-Man, the Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Blackheart, a few others. All of the Street Fighters return, except for Cammy and Charlie, who are replaced with Sakura and Dan. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only game in the Versus series that actually doesn't introduce new characters. Each character in this game comes from either X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, or the Street Fighter Alpha series, and that also includes, obviously, their graphical appearance, their sprites as well. That said, there is one thing that separates this game from X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and that's the secret characters. In X-Men vs. Street Fighter, only Akuma could really be considered a secret playable character, but in this game, there are no less than 6. I believe there's 8, but I don't want to confirm that. And these range from, like, an evil mech version of Zangief that blows fire, which you'll see in the video later on, and the armored Spider-Man from the 1990s cartoon, which you'll see right here. Just take a look at the names in the video and to see all the different characters that I mean. Like, there's like US Agent and Mephisto and a couple others. Each secret character plays a little differently than the character that they're modeled off of, but I think that's actually a lie. If I'm not mistaken, there's only a few of the characters that actually play different, like that Spider-Man and Zangief and a couple of others. Most of them are simply palette swaps, which just means they took the character models and they just, you know, changed the coloring to them. And also, for those that are interested, most of these characters, in order to get their secret character, you just have to highlight one of the characters on the character select screen and press the start button before pressing the action button, and that will activate the secret character. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, that's the way it works. Alright, Apocalypse also makes a return as a boss, but once players finish him off, they no longer take on each other like they did in the original. This time around, there's another boss, which is Cyber Akuma, And he's more of a traditional boss character and just as cheesy as you would expect. And whichever team member lands that final punch is the one that will get their ending played out.
Ready, fight! Your life is
I always thought that was just a wicked boss, so I just wanted to just watch that for a few seconds. Gameplay remains pretty much unchanged from the last game, with the exception that now players can pull off one move where the partner character will jump in, perform one move, and then jump out, but the original character stays in place. You can also obviously do your tag team swapping, and players can still combine their supers and pull off all kinds of crazy moves. Alright, given its really late release in Japan, which was I believe October 22nd, 1998 to be exact, there was never any plans to bring this over to North America on the Saturn. By that time the Saturn had become a collector's item almost, and Sega had just about disbanded in North America. Only a handful of releases were actually made in 1998, and those include Panzer Dragoon Saga, Shining Force 3, and Magic Knight Ray Earth, which was the very final North American Saturn release. That's only 3 games. I could be off because I'm not entirely sure when Burning Rangers was released, but still, let's say there were 5 games in total that year. Talk about a jam-packed year. Just to give you a little comparison here, the Neo Geo AES saw 8 new games released in 1998 for the North American AES. Ouch. Marvel Superheroes vs. Capcom would eventually go on to become one of the most popular arcade hits in the late 90s. And it's funny how so many fans consider the PlayStation era the rise of the 3D fighter, but pretty well all but ignore games like this and X-Men vs. Street Fighter. And I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that the Saturn just completely bombed here because of the way Sega managed the console. And had they done a better job, I think people would have said, you know, the Saturn was basically the end of the really great 2D fighters, instead of saying like, oh well, it was the SNES era and then the Dreamcast brought it back, which is kind of ridiculous because it didn't really go anywhere. If you have a Saturn, there's so many excellent 2D fighters on it, including this one. For anyone looking to purchase a copy of Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter for their Sega Saturn, you're going to have to remember that you need the Action Replay Plus card or something similar, because you have to break the region encoding, and you need that 4 megabyte RAM expansion, which is all included in that lovely Action Replay Plus card. I did a review of that if you'd like to go ahead and check it out. It's on the channel here. Alright, so Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter remains one of the very best fighting games available on the Saturn, and it truly is a showpiece for the power of the machine and just how impressive 2D fighters could really look. And I honestly cannot recommend this one enough to fans of both the Sega Saturn and fighting games in general. I hope you enjoyed the video. Enjoy the rest of this match, and I'll be back once again soon enough. Thanks for watching.